The recent Tomb Raider reboot series has been one of my favourite games of this generation. The definitive edition of the first game was one of my first PS4 games, and it was a fantastic game that felt like a great recreation of Tomb Raider for the modern era. Whilst its sequel, Rise, built upon the original by making it bigger and ultimately much more better. But now here we are with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the final game in this reboot trilogy, that sees Lara Croft finally become the Tomb Raider she's destined to be. Is this a fitting finale? Let's find out. Tomb Raider series developer Crystal Dynamics have taken a back seat in this game and given the franchise to Deus Ex Mankind Divided developer Eidos Montreal to create the final game in this reboot trilogy. Crystal Dynamics still had a role in the development of the game, but in a much more of a supportive role. Shadow's story picks up months after the ending of Rise and sees Lara hot on the heels of the evil organization Trinity. This leads Lara to Mexico to try and nab a special knife before Trinity does. She does get the knife, but without knowing, she accidentally triggers a tsunami that destroys the city in the process, as well as losing the knife to Trinity in the process. Lara then heads off again into the depths of the Amazonian forest in hopes of preventing an apocalypse as well as defeating Trinity once and for all. The story itself is serviceable, I suppose, and it's a means for the cause of this adventure. But honestly, I thought the story was really rather boring and forgettable. I ended up skipping some of the cutscenes just because I didn't care for the story. It's easily the weakest part of the game. On to the gameplay now, and thankfully this is where the game really does shine. If you played either the Tomb Raider 2013 reboot or its sequel Rise, then you got a pretty good idea on how the game plays, as it essentially plays the same as them two. That being said, there are new gameplay features here such as underwater swimming, which is fine, but there are some enemy encounters with eels and piranhas where you have to hide from them, and that was really quite frustrating. Adding the fact that you've got to constantly catch your breath, you'll certainly be glad when you're on land. Bar the swimming sections, the gameplay is still great. It's that same sort of semi-open world slash Metroidvania style exploration that I have been a big fan of. The environment is huge and there's plenty of secrets to come back to once you have the right gear. A lot of people didn't like the previous two games as it focused more on combat rather than actual tomb raiding, so it's great to see that Shadow of the Tomb Raider is full of them. From tombs that are tied to the story to the side challenge tombs, Shadow offers the largest amount of tombs in a Tomb Raider game to date. Each and every one of the tombs are full of challenging and head-scratching puzzles that do require you to think outside the box. These tombs are easily the best in the rebooted series by some margin. On the opposite end of the gameplay spectrum, the combat sections have been greatly reduced. Tomb Raider 2013 and Rise was littered with combat sections, and while they were really fun, there was far too many of them. Now Shadow has done a 360 with combat and only includes a dozen or so encounters throughout the whole game. Now some people will be happy with that, but I feel a little bit disappointed by that, mainly because there are so many weapons and new combat mechanics that you won't be able to use properly because there's so few combat sections, and it's also the fact that combat is still very much fun. Lara still has a bow, shotgun, machine gun and pistol, and they can all be upgraded, and you can also buy new and unlock new ones as you go through the story, as well as making special ammo with different elements. Lara can also cover herself in mud to hide from enemies, as well as new abilities like being able to slow down time, extra defense for physical attacks, as well as healing. As for the platforming in the game, it again plays very similar to the previous games, with Lara performing many death-defying jumps that do look amazing to pull off. These platforming sections have also have a big part to play in the many tombs, helping you to solve the game's many puzzles. Lara also has plenty of costumes to try out in the game that changes her appearance. Some of them are even high-resolution character models of the Lara PS1 days, which is a nice touch. There's also new clothes pieces called Vestige outfits that can be received from missions, tombs, and from merchants that have to be crafted. These Vestige outfits not only look nice but also offer various benefits like extra XP, resistance to fire, reduced noise damage, and so on and so forth. The main story will take you only so long to complete, but the game is filled with plenty of extra stuff to complete to get that 100%. There's a few hundred different collectibles as well as loads of optional tombs I've told you about before. There's also challenges and missions as well, and that's it. There's also no multiplayer in this one, nor is there the expedition mode from Rise, which is a shame because I quite like that one. But for the length of the game, Shadow of the Tomb Raider can be a rather lengthy game if you let it be it. If you go straight from beginning to end without focusing on the side stuff, then you're talking around the 6 to 8 hour mark. But if you aim for the 100%, then you're talking around the 20 to 25-hour mark. On to the presentation now, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider is a beautiful looking game with a vibrant and colourful world to explore. Each area is burst and full of life, whether it's animals that roam the land or the local folk. It does feel like a lived in world, and the lighting is absolutely gorgeous. There's also a photo mode included, so you can take pictures of Lara doing death defying jumps or just take a selfie with a llama. It is really fun to use. Like Rise of the Tomb Raider, Shadow also has some great options for the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One S, as in how you want the game to run. You can choose to have the game run at a stable 30 FPS with a priority on resolution, or an undocked frame rate. The Pro sticks at a rock solid 30 FPS on the stable 30 FPS mode, with hardly any drops at all. The unlocked frame rate sees the frame stay mostly in the mid 40s while taking a bit of a resolution hit. It may be a bit unstable for some, but I didn't mind it. Again, Shadow of the Tomb Raider is a standout with how it tackles support for the higher tier consoles. Conclusion time now, and Shadow of the Tomb Raider is a fun continuation of this new rebooted Tomb Raider trilogy. There is thankfully much more tombs in this entry, filled with plenty of text and puzzles. It is a shame that the combat is pretty non-existent now, and the swimming sections can be very annoying at times. The story isn't up to snuff either, but the gameplay is still very strong here with the Metroidvania-esque exploration loop that is still very fun and addictive today. Though there is a feeling that this is a bit of a safe sequel as it doesn't take enough risks. Here's hoping the next entry tries something a little bit different. So with that, I'm giving Shadow of the Tomb Raider a 7.5 out of 10 with a title of good. Thank you for watching my review, like, rate and subscribe, and until next time, happy gaming. Bye.